In this video, on the early access version of DRIFT21, we're going to answer the question, just how does it feel on a wheel using my Fanatec sim rig? But first, a quick intro for those of you who are new to my channel. I'm Ben, and you're watching Kame Trick. My channel is all about drifting. In fact, it bridges the gap between drifting in simulators and arcade games and real-life drifting. As you can see, I've been drifting in real life for a while. I started about when Formula Drift had their first events in America, and I've also been a gamer at heart since I was a little kid, playing stuff like Spy Hunter and RC Pro-Am, all the way up to Gran Turismo and some of the more modern titles as well. I got into sim drifting, built an awesome simulator about a year ago, and I've really been enjoying bringing my real-life drifting experience and insights into the gaming sphere. So if you want to hang out, enjoy some good laughs, see awesome drifts, gnarly wipeouts, and occasionally actually learn something about real-life drifting, this is the channel for you. Let's jump into it. Here we are in the DRIFT21 garage with the starter car that they give you, an MX-5. This game has basically two modes. It's got a garage mode where you tune up your car and you build your engine and install it. And then the other mode that we're going to check out today is the driving side. So I'll give you a quick sneak peek though. We can come over to the Miata and pop the bonnet. You can see I have done a little bit of work to it. I've swapped in an inline 6, which was naturally aspirated, and then I've added a turbo as well. So that is something to look forward to. But for the time being, we're going to hop in here and go drive the car. A quick overview here. There are 3 tracks. You've got Driftland, School Course, and Minami. You then have 3 modes. You've got Time Attack, which isn't really drift-centric, Solo Runs, which is about drifting, and then Free Run, which is exactly what it sounds like. We'll get started by doing a Time Attack, and as you can see, there are different challenges where you have to complete certain configurations of the course. Keep in mind that Driftland is a skid pad, so even though it looks like it's sending me off course, it's all concrete. Let's get to it. Okay, here we are at our first Time Attack. I'm not actually going to try to go all that fast. But you can see I've added in an over-the-shoulder camera for you guys and a pedal camera. Wow, the braking feels terrible. I'll have to explain that here in a little bit. But you can see that these waypoints light up and guide us through the track. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I completed that in 19 seconds. I did not drift any, so I didn't get any drift points. And it looks like you have to complete the checkpoints, which don't give you anything, and then you clear these speed traps and you get points for that. So in order to pass this challenge, I need to get at least 450 points and complete the course in 30 seconds. So let's try that. I don't think I'm going to be able to... Okay, it's reading my clutch as being in. You can see down at the bottom it shows like the throttle, the brake, which doesn't work very well. For some reason, it thinks that my clutch is completely depressed. Let's reset and see if that fixes it. Alright, let's try this again. We got the clutch out that time, that's a good start. Wow, I don't know what that sound effect is all about. And I'm just going to see if I can't get some drift points here. Apparently not. I don't really understand how it evaluates whether I'm in drift or not. It's certainly not accepting donuts. Okay, so I'm going to say that Time Attack mode is not really working out for me. And also, in my defense, let me show you these settings, okay? So in settings, you've got your general, you've got video, which I'm running maxed out for those of you who want to know. My computer should certainly be able to handle it. It's a Ryzen 2700X with a RTX 2070. So we're going to talk about force feedback for a minute. The steering in the game, when you're like in grip or at a stop, it's easy to steer close to center, and as you move out, it gets exponentially more difficult until here it's actually pretty hard. And then when you release it, you can see how hard it is because the wheel flies back to center, whereas if you're just here, the wheel kind of walks back to center. So I'm not really sure what that's about, especially once you're rolling. There's very little resistance, even in a real car with no power steering. Throttle, totally fine. The brakes, you'll see weirdness here. I've got it set to 40% dead zone. There's a huge dead zone at the start before it begins registering that I am pressing the pedal in. Adjusting this bottom dead zone did not do anything to fix that. And when I'll move my foot out of the way, you see how much I'm moving the pedal in? Just now it started to recognize that I'm pressing the pedal. So all of that is dead zone. And if I actually push it to 100, watch me get shoved back into the seat. So that's a huge amount of work, and it's just not realistic at all there. That's a crazy amount of brake force. Now granted, I don't know if that's a configuration issue on my side or something that's my fault, or if that is something that has yet to be optimized or taken care of in the game programming. The clutch supposedly registers fine, although it failed to register a little bit earlier when I was driving randomly. It registered as I was full clutch in the whole time. I'm using the Fanatec 7-speed gated shifter, and then the handbrake as well. It reads it, although it wasn't reading full lock, so I have turned down the high end dead zone. And then force feedback, we're just using the defaults for now. I'm not going to take the time to adjust this a whole lot. I've played with it a bit though. I've maxed some things out, I've minimized some things out, and the general tendency for the wheel to just exponentially get harder to steer the further you are from center has not changed. I'm going to leave it on the drift land track. I know that's a little bit boring, but honestly, I want us to really focus on the driving. Here we are in free roam. One nice thing that you can see on my bottom right camera is that it does support triple monitors, so that's pretty cool. My driving position is a little weird because I have all of this. You can't even see it. I'll try to duck out of the way. You have all of this over here that I can see out this side, and I can just see up to the mirror on the right. So that's not really ideal, but for the moment, let's just try and drive the car. So like I mentioned, we're in grip right now, and it just gets exponentially harder to steer. Another thing that's interesting is to watch the steering wheel here compared to the one on screen. So I'm going to turn it a quarter turn. It barely moves at all. We're going to go to a half turn. A little bit more. That's like an eighth of a turn. We're going to go to 3/4 turn. And now this is a full 360-degree rotation, and the wheel on screen hasn't even moved a quarter turn yet. If we go to my max, so here is a 900-degree lock to lock. Here's one lock, and there's the other. That is either a curious way to animate it, or maybe there's a setting somewhere that I need to find, or turn my degrees of rotation down to almost nothing, because that's literally like from here to here is what my wheel is doing in 900 degrees. Let's talk a little bit about the feel and the force feedback. I'm going to try and kick it into a drift here. It's pretty floaty. I don't feel like the wheel is telling me a whole lot about what's going on. Also, there's just huge amounts of it's not dead zone, but just poor response. Like if we cruise through here, that should be doing way more to the car than what it actually is. You know, like this is almost nothing. So that's a little strange. But the drifting experience seems pretty difficult. I keep finding myself putting the car into an increasingly tighter radius spin that ultimately just becomes a donut. And so, granted, I don't have like steering knuckles installed on this car yet. It's basically just a more powerful engine, and Miatas are pretty notorious for that, but it doesn't feel very driftable right now. I'm kind of able to do a figure eight. Try transition here. Yeah, it's there's a lot to unpack here, but in a nutshell, the wheel does have some manner of force feedback. When you start to drift, it does start to countersteer for you. So if you watch, I'll let it go as soon as it starts. So like it does countersteer a little bit, and then when you stop drifting, it automatically reverts to that where it tries to pull itself back to center, which wouldn't, actually happen if I were at lock and then the car comes to a stop. The wheels would stay pointed over here. They wouldn't just magically recenter up. So that's a little strange. Real quick, we'll talk about the graphics. Everything that's directly ahead of you looks pretty solid, and as you get over to about the end of what you can see on the OBS view, which is my main monitor, it starts to acquire a motion blur. And once you get over to the far right monitor or the far left monitor, that motion blur is insane. The grass is just a blur over here. So that is really dynamic, and it might look great when you're actually going fast, but going like 10 miles an hour, the fact that it's motion blurring like that when you're looking at it is a little strange. Check out any of my other videos on Assetto Corsa and you'll see that I know what I'm doing. Obviously my real life stuff too, I know what I'm doing there, and you'll be able to see the wheel actually slip through my hands in Assetto Corsa with its proper force feedback setup and realistic self-steering. When you have access to Ebisu Manami, you can't not check it out. So I think we should do just that while I share my closing thoughts on DRIFT21 Day 1 with my Fanatec wheel setup. Also, I just want to see how pretty their laser scanned version of Manami is, because it does look pretty good. I used to live in Japan. I speak Japanese. I taught myself as an adult. You can totally do it. And I have been to and drifted at Ebisu, although I did not drift Manami because I was in a shared or borrowed car and I didn't want to risk obliterating it and wrecking everybody else's time over there. But man, this is a nice render. I wish that this was in Assetto and I could try it with Assetto physics. I know that is all set up very well and works well for me, and I can drive it, and it does really make me want to try and drive it. The grass is a little whatever for me as far as the wavy grass blades, but all in all, it's okay. The other thing that you notice a lot is I'm not very far away from this stuff, but you see plants popping into view as I approach them. That's pretty gnarly. I'm not really sure that I'm a fan of that. It seems like the view distance is awfully short for a game where you're in cars and you could very well be barreling through the track at 60, 80 miles an hour. So to have stuff come into view not that far away from me seems like it would probably look poor if I was going faster. We'll add a little bit of speed here, but I already know from trying just the skid pad that I'm not really going to be able to drift this track. My general impressions are that at the moment, based on my current experience, this is not a game that I'm going to be playing with my Fanatec sim rig. I would consider trying this on a controller, and I will in fact come back and make another video where I review the controller or gamepad experience for you guys, and you can let me know what what you think of this and how excited you are for that. Let me know down in the comments what you hope for DRIFT21 or what you think is it's going to be like. But right now, again, I don't know if it's something that I am not setting up right or if it's just the current early access state of the game. But the wheel experience presently is not particularly compelling. It does have decent graphics. It's that's one of its stronger points as far as the driving mode. The sound effects are okay. The Assetto Corsa sound effects, which is kind of what I'm comparing a lot of things to these days, are not that great. That's one of the weaker points for Assetto. So this is at least competitive with that in that regard. The map quality is really nice. The laser scan is really nice. But for me right now, the issue with the brake pedal, occasionally the clutch slipping, and ultimately the force feedback and lack of solid self-steering for the wheel is kind of what kills it for me. However, there is one entire other mode that hasn't been touched in this game. Now, me personally, I'm really a driver first, and I do know how to tune cars, and I tune my own car, but that is really because it saves me money. I love to drive, and tuning the car is just work you have to put in order to get the reward of driving. But if you really enjoy the detailed tuning process, this game's garage mode is awesome. It's very, very detailed. And in a way that becomes its greatest strength as well as its greatest weakness, depending on what you like and how much you like to actually tinker and do those individual part installs. So be on the lookout for the next video on my channel about DRIFT21. That'll happen in between the Assetto Corsa drifting videos that I produce on a more regular basis. But we're going to check out the tuner mode. We're going to try to drift on a gamepad as well. And I just want to thank you guys for hanging out with me and checking out the early access version of DRIFT21. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below. I always answer my comments. And if you want to get a little bit more involved in the Kame trick community, you've got two options. Every Friday from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Central Time, I have a drift bash in Assetto Corsa. We'd love to have you drive. We always pack the servers for those hours, and it's a wonderful time. I also live stream that. And we've got a Discord, the Kame Trick Discord. It's got over 1,600 members now, I believe. All real-life drifters or sim drifters, some like me who do both. So do check that out. A join link is in the description of this and every video. And until next time, we're going to send it off the jump. It's going to go poorly. But, oh yeah, that went very poorly. We died instantly. So there you go.